Ethan Cole had always loved the mountains. The cold air, the whisper of the pines, and the quiet that stretched for miles made him feel alive in a way the city never could. Years of concrete, noise, and crowds had worn him down, and he had longed for a place where he could think, breathe, and simply be. That longing had led him to this small cabin, nestled in a clearing far from the nearest town. The cabin was old but sturdy. Its wooden walls creaked at night, and the roof often carried the soft weight of snow. Ethan had repaired it carefully, piece by piece, over the years. It was his sanctuary, a small corner of the world he could call his own. Today, after a long winter spent in the lowlands where he had handled city work, he was returning. He reached the cabin just as the sun began to dip behind the mountains. Its orange glow reflected off the snow, turning the forest into a world of gold and silver. Ethan breathed deeply. The smell of pine and cold air filled his lungs. He smiled, feeling peace settle over him. But as he neared the cabin, something felt wrong. The door was not fully closed. A faint trace of footprints led into the cabin, small, delicate, and unlike any humans. Ethan frowned. He had locked the door when he left. No one should have been here. With cautious steps, he entered. The floorboards groaned under his weight. Dust disturbed the stillness, curling in thin streams in the late sunlight. He scanned the room carefully. Nothing looked out of place, except for the fireplace. The ashes were still warm. Someone had used the cabin recently. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. "Who's here?" he called, his voice firm but calm. Only the wind answered. He moved slowly toward the storage room, the one small space he had always used to keep tools and supplies. There was a sound, soft, almost like a whisper, or the scuff of tiny feet on wood. Ethan froze. The sound came again, closer this time. He slowly opened the door. A figure crouched behind his old blankets. Ethan could hardly believe his eyes. It was a woman, but she was not human. Her skin shimmered faintly, silver and soft, like metal touched by moonlight. Her eyes glowed gently, reflecting the last rays of sunlight. She was small, delicate, and clearly frightened. She ducked lower, hiding her face. Ethan took a careful step back. He did not move quickly. He did not shout. Instead, he raised his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." The woman, or alien, shook her head. Her movements were fluid and almost silent. She didn't speak. Her eyes peeked at him through silver strands of hair, full of fear and confusion. Ethan studied her. Her body was human-shaped, but her features were unusual. Her skin caught the light in strange ways. Her fingers were longer than normal, and her eyes seemed deeper than any human's. Yet she was not aggressive. She was simply scared. He realized something important. She was alone, just like him. "Are you hurt?" Ethan asked. The word sounded strange in the quiet cabin, but it was all he could think to say. The alien woman hesitated, then nodded slightly. She made a soft, trembling sound. It was almost like a whisper, but he couldn't understand it. She pointed at the small fire pit. The ashes were still warm. Ethan understood. "You've been here a while?" he asked. She nodded again. 1,000 questions filled his mind. How did she get here? Was she from this world? Was she dangerous? But looking into her frightened eyes, Ethan felt no threat, only a deep need for help. He took another step closer. "I can help you," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." Slowly she lifted her head. Her eyes, glowing faintly, studied him. There was a spark of curiosity mixed with fear. "Human," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Yes, human, and you are—" Her gaze shifted away, looking around the cabin as if searching for answers. Then she spoke again, her voice soft and melodic. Sira, Ethan repeated. The name was strange, beautiful, and otherworldly. "Okay, Sira, you're safe here. Can you move?" Sira hesitated, then slowly stood. She was taller than she had looked while crouching. Her body moved like water over stone, smooth and precise. She walked to the small table and picked up a cup, examining it curiously before setting it back down. Her fingers brushed the wood, leaving a faint shimmer. Ethan's mind raced. He had never seen anything like this. Sira was not human, and yet she looked vulnerable, injured, needing help. "Do you need food?" he asked. Sira looked at him, and for the first time she nodded without hesitation. Ethan went to the small kitchen area and returned with bread and fruit. He placed them gently on the table. Sira watched him, unsure. Then, as if testing the world, she took a piece of bread and tasted it. Her eyes widened slightly, a faint glow appearing in them that almost looked like delight. She ate slowly, carefully, as if savoring each bite. Ethan watched, fascinated. There was something human about her reactions. Not the body, not the appearance, but the wonder, the curiosity, the small gestures that made her feel alive. After a while, she set the bread down and looked at him. Ethan could see that her body still carried pain. Her movements were careful, deliberate, avoiding sudden motion. He realized she had likely survived something dangerous. "Are you hurt badly?" he asked. Sierra shook her head, then pointed to her side. Ethan noticed a faint silver scar along her rib cage just under the arm. It glimmered slightly, almost like it had a soft light inside. "You need to rest," Ethan said. "You can stay here. I'll help you." For a moment, Sierra hesitated. Her eyes darted to the window, the forest outside, as if she feared being watched. Ethan could sense her hesitation. "She was not used to trust. I won't tell anyone," he said quietly. "You are safe here. No one will find you." Finally, she nodded. She moved to the bed in the corner, sitting carefully. Her glowing eyes softened as she watched Ethan. He felt a connection forming, fragile, cautious, but real. The night grew darker. The wind howled softly outside. Ethan built a small fire in the fireplace. The flames flickered across the cabin, casting shadows that danced on the walls. Sierra watched the fire with fascination. Her fingers hovered over it, but she did not touch. "Your kind. Fire," she whispered. "It is. Alive," Ethan smiled. "In a way, yes. Fire is alive to us. It gives warmth, comfort, and light. It keeps us safe." Sierra nodded slowly, as if absorbing the meaning behind his words. There was something about human thought and feeling that fascinated her. She had seen technology, stars, and ships far beyond this world. But humans had heart. And in that she seemed intrigued. Hours passed. The cold outside pressed against the walls, but the cabin felt warm. Ethan offered a blanket to Sierra. She hesitated but accepted it. They sat in silence, two beings from completely different worlds learning each other's presence. Ethan realized that this was only the beginning. Sierra had survived a journey he could not imagine. She had found herself in a strange world, relying on the kindness of a human she had never met. And yet she was not just surviving, she was learning, observing, and perhaps hoping. He did not know how long she had been alone in the mountains or what dangers she had faced before arriving. But he knew one thing clearly: he could not turn away. He could not let fear dictate his actions. Outside, the wind continued to whistle through the pines. The snow gleamed in the moonlight, cold and silent. Inside, a small fire flickered, illuminating two very different beings sharing a single moment of safety. Ethan leaned back in his chair, feeling the warmth on his face. He looked at Sierra, studying her strange, luminous eyes. The road ahead would be uncertain, filled with questions, dangers, and perhaps wonders he could not yet imagine. But for now, in this small cabin, in the heart of the mountains, two beings, human and alien, had found the first spark of trust. And that, Ethan thought, was enough to begin. The night stretched on, quiet and still. The forest around them whispered its ancient songs, and the stars peeked through the dark sky. Somewhere deep in those stars, Sierra's people were traveling, unaware of her survival. And here, in a lonely mountain cabin, humanity had shown its first light to a visitor from beyond the stars. The morning sun broke through the tall pines, sending golden streaks across the snow-covered forest. Inside the cabin, Ethan was already awake. He moved quietly so as not to disturb Sierra, who was still sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in the blanket he had offered her last night. She had not slept much, Ethan noticed. Her silver eyes flicked around the room, taking in every detail: the shelves of books, the stacked firewood, the little stove in the corner. Everything fascinated her. It was all so simple, so human, and yet so different from what she had ever known. Ethan decided it was time to try again. "Sierra," he said softly, "I want to help you. You don't have to stay hidden. You can trust me." Sierra flinched at the sound of her name but looked at him. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft and uncertain. "Trust is not easy." Ethan nodded, understanding. "I know, I didn't trust easily either. But sometimes trust is the first step to safety." She studied him silently for a long moment. Then she slowly nodded, almost imperceptibly. Her glowing eyes softened, and she let herself relax slightly. Ethan poured some warm tea into 2 cups, a habit he had developed during his winters alone. The aroma filled the room. He handed 1 cup to Sira. She touched it carefully, as if afraid the warmth would burn her. When she sipped, her eyes widened slightly at the taste. Water. Tastes different here, she said, her voice small but clear. It is alive, Ethan smiled. Yes, everything here has life. The trees, the snow, even the water. It's not just about what we see, it's about how we feel it. Sira nodded slowly, her mind clearly working to understand his words. She did not speak much more that morning, but her attention to the cabin and its surroundings was careful and thorough. She examined everything, the firewood stacked neatly in the corner, the small tools on the shelves, the way light passed through the windows. Every object was a mystery to her, and she approached each one with the cautious curiosity of someone learning a new world. Ethan realized she was not just curious, she was studying him. The way he moved, the way he cooked breakfast, the way he arranged the firewood. Every gesture seemed to fascinate her. After breakfast, Ethan decided to show her the surroundings. The snow outside crunched softly under his boots as he led her to a small clearing near the cabin. The forest stretched endlessly, tall pines and thick underbrush blanketed in white. The sky was clear, and the sun made the snow sparkle like tiny diamonds. Sira paused at the edge of the clearing. She touched the snow lightly with her fingers, watching it glitter and fall back to the ground. Her eyes were wide with wonder. Cold, but alive, she whispered. Ethan smiled. Yes, life is everywhere, even in the cold. For a while they walked silently. Ethan pointed out tracks of animals, the way the wind shaped the snow and the sounds of distant birds. Sira listened intently, asking only a few questions. Every sound, every movement of the forest seemed new to her. Back at the cabin, Ethan wanted to learn more about her. Sira, he asked, where are you from? She hesitated. Her glowing eyes flickered with emotion, a mixture of fear and longing. Far, very far, she said softly. Stars, many stars. My people, travelers, we go, see life. Ethan nodded, trying to understand. So you're from another world? She looked at him, then nodded. Her voice trembled slightly. Yes, another world. I study. Life, my people. Travel. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. He had always believed humans were alone in the universe. And now, standing in his small cabin, he was face to face with someone from another world. Your ship? He asked carefully. Is it here? Sira shook her head. Broken. Storm. Forest. I came here. Survive. She paused, her eyes reflecting the sunlight from the window. I am hurt. Need rest. Heal. Slowly, Ethan nodded. I can help with that. I know the forest. I can find what you need. Over the next few days, Ethan helped Sira in small ways. He made her warm drinks, set up a small space with blankets and pillows, and brought her fresh food each morning. She was cautious, rarely leaving her corner of the cabin, but she began to trust him. At first, she barely spoke. Her language was strange, filled with soft tones and clicks he could not imitate, but she was quick to understand. Gestures, pointing, and careful mimicry allowed them to communicate. One evening, as the wind howled outside and snow fell thickly, Sira finally asked something that made Ethan pause. Your heart big? Ethan tilted his head. What do you mean? She gestured toward him, then toward the cabin, then back at him. You care. You help, you protect. Your kind heart big, Ethan smiled. He had never thought of it that way, but she was right. Humans did care. Even when there was no reward, even when it was dangerous. That was something unique about them. You notice it, he said softly. And maybe that's why you feel safe here. Because humans can be kind, Sira nodded slowly. Her eyes glimmered. She leaned back on the blanket, still cautious but more relaxed than before. It was the first time Ethan felt she truly trusted him. As the days passed, Ethan and Sira began to fall into a rhythm. He taught her about fire, cooking, and simple tools. She taught him about small alien devices, glowing stones that stored light, tiny mechanisms that could move or repair themselves, and strange symbols that seemed alive when touched. Ethan was fascinated. She explained things slowly, carefully, making sure he understood. Her knowledge was vast, yet her curiosity for his simple human life was just as strong. One night, as the cabin glowed with firelight, Sierra looked at Ethan quietly. Your life, small but strong. You survive, with little. You care for me, without reward. Ethan nodded. Yes, that is what humans do. We survive, we care. We hope. Her eyes reflected the firelight, and for a moment Ethan saw something almost human in her expression. Awe, understanding, and maybe even admiration. But not all was calm. Outside, the forest was alive with shadows. Strange sounds echoed through the trees. Sierra stiffened, listening to something Ethan could not hear. She rose quickly, moving toward a corner of the cabin. Something comes, she whispered. Not humans, danger. Ethan's heart raced. He had felt the peace of the mountains, but now a new fear entered the cabin. Whatever it was, Sierra knew it, and she trusted him enough to warn him. We'll face it together, Ethan said firmly. Whatever it is, you are not alone. Sierra looked at him, her glowing eyes wide. For the first time, she seemed to understand fully what humans could offer. Courage, strength, and trust. That night, as the snow fell outside and the wind howled against the cabin walls, Ethan and Sierra sat close to the fire. The warmth of the flames reflected their growing trust, a fragile bond between two very different worlds. Ethan realized that their journey had only just begun. Sierra had survived a crash, faced loneliness, and encountered the dangers of a strange world. Yet she had found a human who could offer her help, safety, and friendship. And in return, she was showing him wonders beyond imagination, a glimpse of life from the stars and the power of curiosity, courage, and hope. The night grew deep. Outside, the forest whispered, and the mountains stood silent. Inside, the cabin glowed with a warm fire, two beings learning from each other. One human, one alien, beginning a story neither would forget. Ethan knew that challenges were ahead. There would be questions, dangers, and perhaps enemies that neither of them could yet imagine. But he also knew something else. Humans had something special: heart, courage, and the willingness to trust even when the world seemed strange and frightening. And that, he thought as he looked at Sierra's glowing eyes, might just be enough to change everything. Days passed in quiet rhythm. Ethan and Sierra had begun to learn from each other, forming a silent bond stronger than either had expected. The cabin, once just a shelter, had become a small world of discovery and trust. Every morning brought new lessons: fire, food, tools, and the mysteries of the forest. Every evening brought stories, though Sierra spoke sparingly, her words careful and measured. One morning, Ethan decided it was time to learn more about her, and perhaps more about the world she had come from. He brewed tea and sat across from her. The light from the window fell on her shimmering silver skin, making it glow softly. You have been hurt, he began gently. Your side, your body, it must have been hard to survive. Sierra's eyes flickered toward him. Yes, storm. Crash, forest, I almost lost. She looked down at her hands, long and delicate. Alone, always alone. Ethan felt a pang of empathy. He understood loneliness better than most. You're not alone anymore, he said softly. Not as long as I'm here. You can stay, rest, and heal. I'll help. Sierra looked at him for a long time, her glowing eyes studying his face. Finally, she nodded slowly. You trust me? I do, Ethan replied. And you can trust me. That is the only way we can survive here together. Sierra's head tilted slightly, a small gesture almost like curiosity. Trust him is strange. My people trust, sometimes. But humans, trust without proof? Ethan smiled. Yes, sometimes we trust because it is the right thing to do. Not for reward, not for gain, just because it is human. For a long moment they sat in silence, letting the words settle. Then Sierra spoke again. I must tell you. About my world, my people. Travel, stars, study life. I observe. Many planets, many beings. But humans, you, different. Ethan leaned forward, intrigued. Different how? Sierra's eyes reflected the firelight. You'd survive without power. Without machines. You care, even when you get nothing. You feel and help. That is rare. Ethan's chest swelled with a quiet pride. He had never thought of humanity in that way. But hearing it from someone who had seen countless worlds gave the words weight. Thank you, Sierra. That means a lot. Over the next few days, Sierra began to show Ethan some of her own technology. It was small, delicate, and unlike anything he had seen. She had tiny devices that could store light, repair broken things, and even move on their own. The symbols etched on them seemed to shift when touched, like they had a life of their own. Ethan was amazed. "These machines, they are alive?" he asked. Sira shook her head slightly. "Not alive, but aware, respond. To touch, to thought. My people, build, help, protect." He watched as she demonstrated a small device that glowed and moved, repairing a broken tool. "Your people are smart," he said. "Even more than I imagined." Sira tilted her head. "Smart? Yes, but humans, brave, strong, heart, special." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I study your kind, fascinating." Ethan felt both humbled and curious. Humans had survived harsh winters, dangerous creatures, and countless challenges. Yet, here was an alien, someone who had seen the universe, telling him they were extraordinary. "You notice more than you speak," he said. "Do you always observe like this?" Sira's eyes flickered. "Yes, always. Observe, learn, but humans teach without knowing. You, small world, but life, alive, everywhere." That evening, Ethan wanted to show her something special. He led Sira outside, away from the cabin, to a small clearing on the edge of a ridge. The snow sparkled under the moonlight. The sky was clear, revealing countless stars twinkling like diamonds. Sira froze for a moment, then gasped softly. "Stars? Many, many. Beautiful," Ethan smiled. "Yes, and each one could have life, like you said. But some of the best life I've ever known is right here on Earth." Sira tilted her head, watching him. "You protect land, trees, animals, all humans. Small, but care. Strong," he nodded. "We try. We don't always succeed, but we try. And we look after those who need help. Like you." Sira's glowing eyes seemed to shimmer brighter, reflecting the vast night sky. For the first time, she looked less like a stranger and more like someone who belonged, if only temporarily, to this world. Days turned into a week. Sira's strength returned slowly, her movements becoming more confident. She still stayed near the cabin most of the time, but she ventured further into the forest, examining plants, snow, and small animals with delicate care. Ethan followed, teaching her what he knew. One day, as they walked along a ridge, Sira paused and looked at him intently. "You're kind, strange, no weapons, yet fight. Survive, protect," Ethan chuckled. "We have ways. Not the same as yours, but we adapt. We protect what we love. That is what makes humans special." Sira seemed to consider this. "Special?" "Yes, heart, strong, unlike many beings I see." They returned to the cabin as the sun dipped behind the mountains. Inside, Sira carefully repaired a small alien device while Ethan stoked the fire. The light flickered across her silver skin, making it glow softly. "You
helped me," she said quietly.
"You trust. Teach, protect. Human, strange, special," Ethan smiled. "And you teach me, show me. Your world, your life, your people. You're not human, but I can learn from you too." Sira nodded, though her glowing eyes betrayed a hint of sadness. "I must return someday. My people search, they will find me. But here, you protect, safe, think, human." Ethan's heart tightened. He knew she was right. Her people would come, and she would not stay on Earth forever. But for now, she was here, and they had found each other in the vast emptiness of the mountains. That night, as the wind howled and the snow fell, Ethan and Sira sat near the fire. He taught her how to make simple repairs to her small devices, and she showed him how the symbols and lights worked. "You, human, learn," fast as Sira said softly. "Perhaps stronger than I thought. Not muscle, but heart, mind, courage." Ethan chuckled. "Humans have always survived, even when the odds were against us. We adapt. We fight, we care. That is what makes us strong." Sira looked at him, her eyes reflecting both the firelight and the stars outside. "Strong, yes, human. Special, must remember, teach others." Ethan realized then that their connection was more than survival. It was a meeting of worlds. She was learning about humanity, but in a way he was learning from her too. About courage, curiosity, and seeing the universe with eyes unclouded by fear or routine. Outside, the mountains were silent. Snow covered every tree, every rock, every path. But inside the cabin, warmth glowed. Two beings from different worlds had found a fragile trust, one that would shape the days to come. Ethan looked at Sierra and smiled. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone. Sierra's eyes glimmered. And you, human, must remember, special, must fight, protect, live, heart, strong. The night stretched on. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Sierra carefully examined her devices, repairing them, studying them, but always glancing at Ethan as if to make sure he was safe. For the first time, Ethan understood that life was larger than the mountains, larger than the snow, larger even than Earth itself. And yet, it was here, in this small cabin with an alien who had traveled across the stars, that he felt the most alive. Somewhere beyond the stars, Sierra's people were traveling, unaware of her survival. But here on this small planet, two beings had found each other, human and alien, and in doing so, had created a bond that neither time nor distance could easily break. And though danger would come, though storms and shadows waited, Ethan felt something he had never felt before. Hope. Real hope. Because humans, he realized, were special. They survived. They cared. They fought. And they could teach even a traveler from the stars that courage, kindness, and heart were the greatest power of all. The morning was crisp and clear, the sun barely rising above the snow-covered pines. Ethan woke early, as always, to tend the fire and check the cabin's surroundings. Sierra was already awake, sitting by the window, her glowing eyes reflecting the soft light. She seemed restless, moving her fingers across the smooth wood of the window frame as if feeling the world beyond. Ethan approached carefully. "Something wrong?" he asked. Sierra shook her head, but her eyes betrayed concern. "I sense others, not humans. Hunters, searching." Ethan's heart tightened. He had felt peace here in the mountains, but her words brought a cold unease. "Hunters?" he asked. Sierra nodded. "Machines, search. Find, take." "My signal, broken, they sense." Ethan swallowed hard. He had not thought of this, that her presence could attract danger. He looked around the cabin. Everything was still, the snow untouched, the trees silent. But he trusted Sierra's instincts. She had survived storms and crashes, traveled across the stars, and somehow found refuge in his mountains. She knew threats he could not yet see. "Then we prepare," he said firmly. "We protect this place." Sierra's glowing eyes studied him as if weighing his words. Then she nodded. "Yes, protect, together." For the rest of the day they worked silently but efficiently. Ethan collected extra firewood and reinforced the doors and windows. Sierra repaired her small devices, placing them strategically around the cabin, each one humming softly. She explained that they could sense movement, create small energy barriers, and even emit blinding light to confuse attackers. Ethan watched, fascinated. Her knowledge was unlike anything he had encountered. She was not just an alien visitor. She was a being capable of defending herself, yet she trusted him enough to let him help. That trust made him determined to do whatever it took to keep her safe. As evening fell, the wind picked up, sending snow swirling through the forest. Shadows stretched long across the cabin walls. Ethan and Sierra sat near the fire, listening to the silence, waiting. Hours passed. Then a low hum echoed through the trees outside. Ethan froze. Sierra's glowing eyes sharpened, scanning the dark forest. "They uncome," she whispered. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. He had never faced anything like this. The hum grew louder, accompanied by a faint blue light moving among the trees. Metallic shapes appeared through the snow, machines large and sleek moving with precision. Their eyes glowed cold, scanning for any sign of movement. "They are not friendly," Sierra said quietly. "They take, capture, destroy," Ethan nodded. "Then we fight together." Sierra gave him a small device that emitted a soft blue light. "Hold, use, blind them." He took it, studying it quickly. "Got it." The machines moved closer, their metal bodies reflecting the moonlight. They were silent, efficient, and unrelenting. Ethan glanced at Sierra. Her eyes glimmered with a strange mixture of fear and determination. She was not afraid to face them, but she knew the danger was real. Ethan took a deep breath and moved to the door, peeking outside. One machine's sensors scanned the clearing, its glow moving slowly like a predator's eye. Ethan acted fast. He pressed the device in his hand and a brilliant blue light flashed, striking the machine directly. Its sensors flickered and it stumbled back, confused. Sira activated her own devices, placing them in strategic positions around the cabin. Small energy barriers shimmered into existence, blocking paths and confusing the machines. Ethan and Sira worked in perfect coordination, moving silently yet effectively. The snowstorm intensified, the wind howling through the pines. Snowflakes swirled around them, masking their movements. Ethan used the storm to his advantage, darting between trees, throwing small logs to create noise and distractions. The machines advanced slowly, their movements calculated but hindered by the snow and Sira's devices. One machine broke through a barrier, heading directly toward the cabin. Ethan grabbed a heavy branch and swung it at the metal creature. Sparks flew as it collided with the machine, causing it to stumble. Sira activated a small device that emitted a bright, blinding light, disorienting the machine further. Ethan could see the fear in Sira's eyes, but she did not falter. She was precise, deliberate, every move calculated to protect them both. He felt a surge of admiration and determination. Humans were not alone in courage. Sira was proof that courage could take many forms. The battle continued for what felt like hours. The machines were relentless, but Ethan and Sira's coordination, combined with the storm, gave them the advantage. Logs, devices, and clever traps slowed the attackers. Finally, one machine caught fire after colliding with a fallen tree, and the others seemed to hesitate. Sira's devices emitted a sharp pulse, and the remaining machines retreated, moving back into the dark forest. The hum faded, replaced by the howling wind. Ethan dropped to the snow, exhausted but alive. Sira moved to his side, brushing snow from his coat. "You human, fight, brave, strong," she whispered. Ethan shook his head, smiling despite the cold and fatigue. "You were amazing too. I couldn't have done this without you." For a long moment they sat together, catching their breath. The forest was quiet again, the snow falling softly, covering tracks and evidence of the battle. They had survived, but the encounter had changed something. Danger was real, and the mountains, though beautiful, were not completely safe. Sira studied the retreating machines. "They'd come again," she said softly. "Must leave soon." Ethan felt a pang of sadness. He had grown used to her presence, to the companionship they had built over days of quiet trust and shared effort. "When you leave, will you be safe?" he asked. Sira's glowing eyes softened. "I hope my people find me, but here. You protect." "Safe, thank human." Ethan nodded. "I'll help you get ready. We'll make sure you can leave safely." They spent the rest of the night preparing. Sira repaired her ship using materials she had collected and devices Ethan had helped her fix. Ethan learned quickly, guided by her careful instructions. They reinforced the small cabin, ensuring it could withstand another attack, but both knew it was only temporary. Sira could not stay hidden forever. By morning, the forest was calm again. Snow covered the trees in thick layers, and the sun reflected off the white landscape. Ethan and Sira stood outside, surveying the clearing. The machines were gone, at least for now. "You survived," Sira said softly. "Together, humans, strong. Art, special," Ethan smiled. "We survived because we worked together. That's what humans do. We help each other no matter the odds." Sira looked at him, her glowing eyes full of admiration. "Then human, art, teaches, courage, must, remember, teach, others." Ethan understood. She would return to her people one day, and she would carry stories of humans, not just of survival but of kindness, courage, and hope. As they walked back to the cabin, Ethan felt a quiet pride. Humans were special, as Sira had said. They had survived against machines from another world, using only their wits, courage, and trust in each other. Inside, the fire burned warmly, a small comfort after the night's battle. Sira carefully placed her repaired devices on a shelf, checking each one before sitting down. Ethan poured them both warm tea, and they drank in silence, the quiet after the storm a relief. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the snow. Ethan watched Sira, realizing how much they had learned from each other. She had shown him the universe, technology, and courage beyond human experience. He had shown her trust, kindness, and the strength of the human heart. Somewhere beyond the mountains, the hunters might return. But for now, in this small cabin, Two very different beings had survived together, and that survival, that bond, was stronger than any machine, stronger than any storm, stronger than fear itself. Ethan realized that the mountains, the snow and the forest were not just beautiful, they were alive, and they had taught him something important. Courage and trust combined with heart could overcome even the most frightening odds. And Sira, for all her otherworldly knowledge, had learned something too. Humans were not weak, small, or fragile. They were brave, they were kind, and they could survive, protect, and inspire in ways no technology, no machine, and no starship could replicate. As the night deepened, Ethan and Sira sat by the fire, their hearts steady despite the danger that might still come. Outside, the mountains slept under the snow, silent and unyielding. Inside, warmth and trust glowed brighter than ever, a testament to courage, friendship, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. The morning sun rose gently over the snow-covered mountains. Light spilled through the cabin windows, illuminating the small, cozy space where Ethan and Sira had spent the past weeks. The forest was quiet, but the air was alive with anticipation. Today was different. Sira's repaired ship gleamed faintly in a hidden clearing, ready for the long journey home. Ethan woke early, as usual, and stoked the fire. Sira was already awake, standing by the window, her glowing eyes reflecting the morning light. She was calm now, almost serene, but there was a tension in her movements. She was preparing to leave the place that had become a temporary home, a sanctuary, and she was aware that danger might still be near. Ethan entered the room quietly. "You're ready," he said softly. Sira turned to him. Her silver eyes held a mixture of sadness and determination. "I must leave. My people, search. They will find me. But here, you protect, safe." Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I know, and I'm proud of you, Sira. You've survived so much, and you've taught me so much too." Sira tilted her head, a small gesture of curiosity. "Teach humans, you strong heart, special?" Ethan smiled faintly. "It's not just me. Humans, we survive. We care, we fight. We hope. That's what makes us special." Sira studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she approached him. Her glowing hands reached out, touching his arm gently. "I remember human courage, kindness, heart must tell my people, must tell the stars." Ethan placed a hand over hers. "And they will know. They will know what humans can do." The two stood in silence for a moment, the warmth of the fire contrasting with the cold snow outside. Outside, the mountains were still and quiet, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Finally, Sira spoke again. "I go, but humans, live, heart, strong, special." Ethan nodded. "Yes, and you, tell them what you've learned here. That humans are not weak, that we care, that we survive no matter what the odds." Sira's eyes glimmered, a faint reflection of the fire and the stars beyond. She turned toward her ship, moving with graceful precision. Every step was deliberate, careful, as if honoring the mountains and the cabin that had protected her. Ethan followed her to the clearing. The snow crunched softly beneath their feet. The small ship hummed faintly, its engines glowing with energy. It was strange, delicate, and powerful, unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. "You ready?" he asked, his voice steady despite the weight in his chest. Sira nodded. "Yes, thanks. Human, trust, help, heart." Ethan watched as she climbed into the ship, adjusting controls with precise movements. Small panels glowed and shifted, and the craft seemed to come alive under her touch. She looked back at him once more. "Goodbye, human," she said softly. "Remember and courage, kindness, heart, strong." Ethan waved, a mixture of pride and sadness filling him. "Goodbye, Sira. Fly safe." The ship lifted from the snow, hovering for a moment before ascending into the sky. Light reflected off the hull, casting a glow across the forest. Ethan watched it rise, his heart filled with both longing and hope. As the craft disappeared into the sky, Sira looked back once more, a faint smile on her glowing face. Somewhere far beyond the stars, her people would see her return, but she would carry with her the memory of the human who had shown her courage, kindness, and heart in a small mountain cabin. Ethan stood alone in the clearing, the cold wind brushing against his face. He felt a strange pride. He had faced danger, survived against impossible odds, and protected someone who had traveled across the stars. Humanity had shown its strength not through weapons or machines, but through heart, courage, and trust. He walked back to the cabin, feeling the weight of the mountains around him. The snow glistened and the forest whispered softly. Life went on as it always did, but he knew that the world had changed, not just for Sira, but for himself as well. Back inside, Ethan sat by the fire. The cabin was quiet, the snow falling softly outside. He reflected on the past weeks, the discovery of Sira, the trust they had built, the danger they had faced together. And he realized something profound. Humans were special. Not because of power, but because of heart. Days turned into weeks. Ethan continued his life in the mountains, but he often looked up at the stars, remembering Sira's words. Somewhere out there, she was telling her people about humans, about courage, kindness, and heart. One night, as he gazed at the stars, a single point of light blinked brighter than the rest. It was quick, a brief flash, but it felt like a message. Ethan smiled, knowing it was Sira somewhere far across the stars acknowledging.